up in the sky, the birds, the planes.
Jason J. Lewis, the voice of Superman on Justice League Action. And you're listening to the Krypton Report.
That's us. The Krypton Report. Yeah. What is up, James Flippin' Cole?
Oh, it's been a long week and it's only Tuesday.
Welcome. If you're joining us, I am Tyler, the Superman of Blue, the Man of Tomorrow, and with me as always, James Cole, the Superman of Red, the Man of Steel himself. We got a lot to chat about today. A lot. Now, I do want to first thing off the gate here is we did not do our live Superman Saturdays this Saturday because come Thursday night into Friday, we had some issues where YouTube had deleted our channel and said that we had violated something. I don't even know. And I had to fill out the whole what do you call it? Like appeal form and everything. And then eventually it was approved and they're like, oh, we're sorry. We hope we didn't blah, 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 cause any problems. And I was just like, holy crap, dude. I was causing problems. Dude, I was pissed. Like I freaked out. Like I've spent a lot of time, we've been working on building up our YouTube and everything, but we were still waiting to hear about it being in the clear. So we didn't get around to that because we had already kind of like put that on the side burner until we figured out this whole YouTube thing. So we will resume that coming Saturday. If you're like, what are you guys talking about? Well, that's this right here. Superman, the animated series, live rewatch, 9 a.m. or 8:30 a.m. Sometimes we just switch between on the Saturdays where you got it streaming on Facebook and YouTube. Used to be on X until now they will only let you stream on X if you're a paid X subscriber. We've been going through Superman, the animated series every Saturday morning. Most of the time, our good friend Nate McKenzie from the Superman the Animated Series podcast has been joining us, and it's been a good time. Just like, grab your bowl of cereal, sit back, watch cartoons Saturday mornings.
Right. Have some coffee, watch Superman the Animated Series. Haven't done that since since my son was little.
I mean,
both my kids are only a year apart, so they were both.
I have not watched the animated series straight through in about almost 10 years because it was when Solomon's 9, he'll be 10 in January, but it was right when he was born. I watched it when I was up with him. So it's a nice kind of going back and watching it straight. This is our QR code to all of our links. James and I have been working on building up our $1 Patreon. You'll see the advertisement for that in the broadcast, but we do special episodes of James's monthly horror, The Gore Report. He's got one episode out. Next one's coming up.
Yep. Last one was Slasher September on Friday the 13th. And it's October, so you can imagine what we're going with on the first October film.
James has had a rad idea with going through reviewing and talking horror each month, but going about it through the holidays, which is pretty neat. We also James and I do the Supernatural Report. It's usually monthly. We did get behind just because of my family situation, but we are getting back on track with the Supernatural Report as we're going back through and we're doing commentaries as we watch the episodes of Supernatural, doing something a little bit different than just same old of just, watching it and talking about it, kind of like living it together. And then we also just do specials like a few months ago or just recently, there's a special that popped up that Jeannie and I did. Jeannie and I have been watching the Star Wars film saga and commentating with those. And we're getting back on track with those. Like I said, we had a family tragedy that kind of threw some things, to the wind with that. But it's just $1 and it's awesome. And if you
haven't gotten together yet to talk about Beetlejuice.
I know. That'd be a great one.
That came out on digital, so more people might see that soon.
We might end up recording that this month because it is a Halloween film. But we're going to kickstart this conversation with a little bit of new. We're going to do it a little bit differently. Okay, we're going to kind of break this up in segments here. So what's going to happen here? James and I are going to talk a little bit of Joker 2. And then we're going to talk about our next big topic, and then then you will hear Jania and I's discussion on Joker 2. I went ahead and Jania and I saw it. We released it on the Patreon, but I thought I'd go ahead and attach it here because it was a great discussion. We recorded it in the car on the drive home from the movie, just kind of, our first response. But now, since James has seen it, we haven't talked about it. Like, that's one.
No.
I was trying to us not to talk about it.
Let's say you guys saw it on Thursday and I saw
Yep.
it on Sunday. So,
And I did not want us to talk about it at all if we can keep from it.
Yeah, we haven't. I haven't listened to anything on it either. I've got a whole bunch in my queue.
And
few different
Brian,
reviews I want to listen to.
and our good pal Brian is doing. I'm supposed to join him on Sunday evening for a Joker special, and that's when he wants to talk about it. So I haven't even talked with Brian about it at all. So it's kind of been weird because I haven't really. It's just been me and Jania. But we're going to talk about we are at some point still trying to. We were going to do for October. We were going to do our commentary for the Patreon on Joker. But we've had to reschedule 4 times because of life, because we were going to do one of those me, James, Jamie, and Jania evenings, and we just had to reschedule multiple times. So it's been fun. But let's talk a little Joker Folie à Deux because it's not doing so great. We're going to bring this up first. Ready? The cinema score.
Yeah.
A D. This is the one time you don't. D is not good, guys. D is not good.
Not for the D there.
No. The film is not doing well. At last I checked, it only done 120 million worldwide, not domestic, worldwide. And the budget for this was almost 200 million.
Wow, that's a lot.
Yeah, well, when you consider that the first film cost about 50-60 million. Okay, I think if they Joaquin, Lady Gaga, and Todd Phillips, I think their salaries pretty much equaled up to the budget of the first film.
Yeah. Well, and then they had so many more people in this movie. They had a very good cast in the first one, but this was a broader cast. There was a lot of different people in Arthur's life at this time, because in the first one there was only a couple of people in his life at this time.
Yes, but at the same time, that does not the creative team behind this. They took advantage of Warner Brothers. Oh, let's get some big payouts because of how good the first movie did, and they were like, okay, here we go. They had the clout,
right?
And yeah, they took advantage. But hey, James, let's hear your thoughts on Joker.
Spoiler free right up front. I enjoyed the movie. I thought it was very well done, very well acted. We've made plenty of Seven Brides for Seven Brothers jokes on here. We're both musical people, so
we are going to do that one day. We're on the Patreon. We will be doing. Jania, can you hear me? Yeah, one day on Patreon, me, you, James, and Jamie, we're watching Seven Brides for Seven Brothers. She said that'll be awesome.
All right. So I enjoyed that. I think that's messing with people right now. I know that was a contested part of the film when it was in development, but I enjoyed the movie. It was definitely a sequel. The way he was in the first one, you can kind of see it building up to the Joker, but it's not, but it wasn't. So it wasn't really that much that bad, or it wasn't a problem for me, where they ended up taking the whole thing, because it was all about the psychology of him and from his point of view and things like that in the first and the second one. So for the most part, I mean, I enjoyed the movie quite a bit the entire time that I was there. I liked it. Jamie liked it. Um, she loved it. She loved the first one, and she only saw the first one for the first time on Saturday, and we went and saw the second one on Sunday. So,
before we get into like a little bit more discussion about it, what would you give it letter wise?
I mean, for me, because like I said, the way I liked it as, and it's hard to say because it's not a comic book movie,
No,
even though it's attached. It doesn't even have the DC brand on it.
It didn't. The first one didn't either.
Yeah,
And I did. I expected. One of my guess was this movie would have been the first one to bear the DC Elseworlds logo because we
right.
have it. We're from DC Studios. But what's interesting, little side note, is that was what we were told. But we didn't even get that
That
logo.
is what he said in that last January
Right.
thing coming out. He discussed Elseworlds and the Elseworld brand, and Joker 2 was one of the movies he listed.
And the other was Matt Reeves' stuff. So then when I kind of suspected we may or may not get it with Joker 2 because they've kind of Todd Phillips doesn't really want to admit like he's in the DC world as much as he is, but that's another story. But we haven't seen that logo, the DC Studios Elseworlds, because I expected to see it on Penguin, being that that's part of the Matt Reeves verse, and we haven't seen it over there. So I'm curious if we'll see it with the Batman 2. But like I said, the first Joker didn't even really acknowledge the DC because, well,
all you had was Gotham and the Wayne family.
Yeah, I mean,
that's literally it.
And we'll talk about this more, but I mean, it's a movie about mental health. It's a movie about a character, and if you just change everyone's name, it's still the same movie. It's still the same story. You call Arthur is not Joker, he's the clown. Gotham is New York. It's still everything plays the exact same. And even in Joker 2, they acknowledge that Gotham City is in the state of New York.
Interesting, because in the Penguin, it's in New Jersey.
Yeah, I mean, but that's more in that world of actual like where you're
when it comes to like the locations, like if you actually looked at that like one book or whatever with the DC maps, like Gotham is like in New Jersey, but some people are like New York, New Jersey.
But they're not.
That's where it is.
But they never actually acknowledge the state that it's in.
Yeah.
Like Metropolis is always it's Metropolis. They never say what state it's in unless you're watching Smallville. Then for some reason it's in Kansas. But anyways, I totally forgot. But okay, so now James, you're getting there. What was your letter grade for it?
Okay, so yeah, my letter grade for Joker Folie à Deux is a B.
Ooh, James might be the only person on the internet. I will give you a Jania gave it a D and I gave it a C.
Yeah.
And now we're going to jump over the spoiler wall. And here we go. Okay. I'm not going to go really into all my thoughts because like I said, I've been attached to me and Jania's conversation. My biggest issues with this film, it was overinflated. It was too long. There's certain things you could trim. The music part never, as far as that part, the film was pretty much what I expected as far as style, tone, story, structure.
Yeah.
As far as how the music played into it, it was exactly what I thought it was going to be.
Pretty much.
I went into the movie. I told Jania, I'm not going to think of this as a comic book movie. I'm going in and I'm going to analyze this as a film in itself. No, like that's not in the comics because I knew they're not playing true to these characters. But I feel like the story was just kind of meh. certain things in it with certain characters. I felt like they were trying to build something, but they didn't. It just kind of went flat. And then in the end, like with the end of the courtroom scene, I I'm thinking, is this movie going to retroactively make Joker worse? Like, are you now going to watch Joker after watching this and be like, it's not as good?
Not in my opinion. Watching them both together,
It'll
because
be
it's
interesting
it's
to
the
watch them
final
back.
goodbye.
And I think,
That's what it means. So that's like they told you pretty much what was going to happen in it, but it's a journey. For this guy going from being alone and broken and abused to like being adored and getting attention, but it also not being the attention that he ultimately wanted to have. Or it kind of makes it seem so it's just the journey, you know what I
mhm,
mean? One and two together. Because in the end in this film, I mean, basically your primary antagonist, as it looks like it's the outside world.
yeah.
Um, it's the guards at Arkham, it's the courtroom, it's the media, it's the lawyers, it's it makes it seem like the world is the primary antagonist. And basically in the end, the biggest antagonist he had was Harley.
Oh, yeah.
She manipulated and used him. She just, she fell in love with this idea and used him until there was nothing left.
And you're talking about Lee, because we can't say Harley Quinn, but Harley and Quinzel one time, and then the rest of the time it's Lee, because we can't.
Yes,
Yeah.
it is Lee.
Uh, the thing is, you are going on this journey. You are with Arthur, and Todd Phillips has come out and said he was always Arthur. He was never the Joker. He told us back when the first Joker movie came out, but people didn't listen. So everyone had these expectations of what this movie was going to be. And
Well,
it
it's
didn't.
funny because you can't say Joker without calling him the Joker so many times. You know what I mean?
They say the
And
Joker one time in this movie. The rest of it, it's
and
just Joker.
and that's from the media point of view, the Joker.
Hmm.
But Joker was just him.
But that's my
It
problem
was
in
his.
this.
It was kind of the act he eventually put on. It's he was raised and he was made to believe like the character, the
Mhm.
persona, the comedian, you know what I mean? Like that's kind of what he had basically dedicated his life to.
Yeah, and
So he was Joker. He wasn't the Joker. He was just Joker.
mhm. And that's kind of the thing is because they try to do this whole thing where they try to say that the Joker was almost like a split personality, and
Well,
I
that's
just like,
your clinical diagnosis and your courtroom law defense.
yeah, and I was like,
So
mm.
it wasn't necessarily him either.
Yeah, it just, I don't know.
It was the lawyers. The entire both films is told from the character perspective, and
In the
um,
first film,
there's something I really love about it. It that type of the way the storytelling is told, the way the story is told from his point of view is just something that appeals to me.
the first film establishes he is very much an unreliable narrator. We know this, and the first film plays with us a little bit, and the first movie, okay, in the final scenes of the movie, he's being interviewed. He's in like the hospital, right? And he comes walking out, and it looks like he's walking with blood footprints. He's barefooted. So the whole time I'm watching this movie, they keep talking about how many people Arthur's killed. That event is never referenced.
No.
So I'm like, okay. And then I'm sitting there watching this, like, what if this movie bookends with that scene? And like this movie was like in his head because the first movie plays with our mind more of what's real, what's not real.
Yeah,
And
because
for the
this one, it's much more explicit as to what's in his head and what is not.
right, the musical stuff is what's in his head. Like he never dons the full.
Almost all of the musical stuff.
Yeah, you can tell because
Yeah,
the
the
one.
performative music stuff
Yeah,
that's all in his head.
because
No matter how little or big.
he never dons the full Joker get up unless it's in his head. Because like he doesn't have the green hair when he does the music, like he has the green hair in the makeup. In the real world, so to speak, he puts on the makeup, but he doesn't ever have the green hair. So like he never takes the full persona until he's in his head. So this pretty much plays. There's only like one scene I feel that can be argued that maybe that was in his head. But even then, we don't know. There's no evidence either way. And I think that's part of people are looking for that type of stuff in this movie. Like I said, the first film really plays around with images and stuff of what's really going on. And
Oh yeah,
this one,
times
and
on the clock and
yeah, and in certain events, the way they play out. But this one doesn't do that. And I think that was kind of, I don't know if I want to say a letdown, but I feel there's things in this movie that, okay, I'm going to say this. I feel that there's a whole bigger Harley part or subplot that was cut out of this movie.
oh yeah.
Yeah.
I think that her part ultimately was limited though. Because most of it was just most of her appearances and performance, or at least half of her performances in the film were the musical numbers in his head.
Yeah. Because let's look at this. We see his routine of getting up, taking his meds, and everything. Then we get a scene where he goes to take his medicine. He looks at the cup and then looks at the nurse. And the nurse's face is only in the reflection. It's very straight. And he smiles and he takes his pills. And then later he says, I've already stopped taking my meds. Okay. Harley talks about she wants Joker. She always calls him Joker. She wants Joker. Okay. Jania asked me at one point, do you think she's a plant? And I was like, I don't know. I don't know where they're going with this. Okay. And then there's parts where we find out that everything she's told Arthur is basically a lie. She checked herself in there. She comes from money, and that she has her master's degree in psychology. Okay.
Which basically was how she could get there. She's crazy herself, but she got herself in. She got herself to meet him. She wanted the Joker. She was obsessed with the Joker. And ultimately, when he reveals that there is no Joker, that he's just Arthur, she abandons him.
Right. So think about this.
Like she even lied to him that she was pregnant, so that
Did
way
she
he
lie?
wouldn't.
That's the thing that's like the
I
one,
feel like she did.
because when he confronts her later, she doesn't really acknowledge either way. I feel like that's going to be one of the big things that people are going to argue and debate about. Was that real? Wasn't real? Because she comes to see him in solitary, and that's one of those scenes you're like, okay, did that really happen or not? And if she comes from money, it's very easy. The idea that she just slipped the guard some money, they let her in, because we know it's a corrupt system at Arkham. Go to when she's in the courtroom.
And it ends with that too. It ends with a corrupt system.
Yeah. Go to the courtroom. Okay. The first time they're in court, there is one chair in the back that's open, but there's people lining the walls, and she gets in and then sits down in the chair. And you can tell that his attorney doesn't like her being there, but she keeps making her way in there. She makes her way outside. So she has to have some way of getting in there. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
And then we see that she got Arthur's old apartment and she's living there. And then, like, this is one of the big things for me. Okay. I'm going to pull this up. This shot right here is not in the movie.
Nope.
Okay. That shot goes along with the scene of her, like, she's doing her makeup and stuff, and she's recreating images of Arthur in the first film. Like, she's almost like, because we see her put a gun to her head, and we're left thinking that, what'd she do, right?
Yeah, I thought he was gonna go all the way back to the apartment and find her.
Well, that's what I thought he was going to happen too. But then when he meets her on the stairs, she's in this outfit with this hair that she. Okay. And Todd Phillips has said that scene really does happen of her on the stairs. Okay. So the whole reason for her to still have the makeup on, for her hair to be cut, is lost. Like, why did she do this? Okay. So I really feel like there was more to her character going on, because they referenced this film, a made-for-TV movie that she's watched she said about 20 times, but then she says later like 5 times.
Yeah.
That she was obsessed with. Okay. We never see any of that in the movie. And what I'm thinking is, she's watched this movie, she's learned this movie, and she's almost ritualistically doing the exact same steps that Arthur did. When you think about the scenes that led him, where he's doing his makeup and where he is becoming Joker.
Right.
And I'm just feeling that there was more to her character than we got. Like they just were like, yeah, because they've used this image and her like that in a lot of promo stuff, and that's not even, like I said, in the film.
In the movie. Yeah. Well, let me throw this your way, in that just with that idea, the first one made so much money. So who wanted to basically be the primary backer of the second one?
Warner Brothers.
Exactly. They weren't the primary on the first one.
They split. They threw in
what they do in the office, time limits and pace and all this other crap.
Oh, they didn't touch this. That's the thing, is like they let Todd do what he wanted because they wanted another big payday. Because if you're talking time limits and pacing, then this movie should have been like an hour 45. Because there's certain scenes that go on so long. And that's what I'm saying, where even Jania's like, I'm bored because nothing's happening. And even some of the sequences of like the what should be entertaining of the music and stuff, you're not really entertained, and you're just kind of like just dangling through. It's like the movie got to a point where it was like, I don't know what to do now. And I would find it more interesting to be fueling this character of Harley, like as much footage as you shot, put her in there, because people love this character.
Right. Well, I may have liked the movie. I may have really liked it and enjoyed it, and I will buy it. And when I buy it, I will watch it again. But then,
I can't wait to
probably sit on the shelf until we do a commentary. Or
we're gonna do a commentary like right after this thing comes out. Like,
okay, or and then after that, I don't know when I will honestly put it on.
Right.
I haven't watched the first one in 2 years, probably.
I watched the first one when it was in theaters, and then I bought it, and then I watched it one other time. And it's a good movie, but it's not one I'm going to throw in all the time.
Exactly. It is a great movie. I think it's fantastic. It's so well done.
And I told Jania, like, I look forward to watching this one again with you and her and doing the commentary for it. Because I feel like there's stuff to talk about. I mean, quickly.
I do too. Well, go ahead.
They wasted my boy Harvey Dent. They just threw his name out there. Why? But I feel like Harvey Dent in this movie is what like Bruce Wayne, Alfred, and Thomas Wayne were to the other movie. A name,
Yeah.
a figurehead to just
Yeah.
use that comic book. Um, I looked for parallels between you had 3 prison guards with the 3 people that Arthur killed on the subway, like parallels, and I feel like that's an issue with the movie is that you're looking more in depth for things that aren't really
That's
being paid
probably
off.
why they didn't hide as much, you know?
Mm-hmm.
Like
Now,
the
what
first one was very cerebral in that, and then you come in the second one, you make it from a standpoint of that they're going to be looking at things like that.
now let's now I told Jania something that I noticed. James, what cartoon were they watching in prison?
Pepe Le Pew,
And what is Pepe Le Pew about?
a French skunk
A French
who's
skunk.
very forward.
But Pepe Le Pew is a French skunk who's in love with a cat who's been painted like a skunk, who's not really a skunk, and is forcing the cat to try to be something it's not. So if you look at it as in a parallel, Harley is Pepe and Arthur is the cat. Because he's Arthur, but he's painted as the Joker, and that's not really who he is. And in the movie, I was waiting to see it be revealed that Harley or Lee was more of the antagonist. Like she was behind getting, like I said earlier, him not to have his meds, him being moved to the musical or into the lighter, section of the prison so they can meet, her being responsible for the bomb that went off, or at the end she was going to kind of come out and be more of like the Joker, like she was going to try to take the mantle or something and lead the crazed revolution or whatever.
Right.
And because my question is, why even tell us about her background with psychology if that really is not going to be used? Because it doesn't do anything else for the character other than just make us more intrigued by her, but there's no payoff with it.
Yeah, I suppose that's true.
Because you could have had the exact same story if you hadn't said that. And we just see
But
her.
you're talking about a movie that's building into a larger world. That's, you know what I mean?
I
The
just want to.
world is the movie is Arthur's world. It's
Right.
not about the larger world. The movie is Arthur's world, and that's
But
it.
But think back to like how they introduced and did characters in the other one. It was about like Arthur's world.
Barely. Like, I mean,
And
they barely introduced them. Like, the only time you saw Bruce was that. And then the only time you saw them outside of that was they're saying that this was the night that the Waynes were killed. Other
and
than that, that didn't matter, except
right.
for this is the night that the Waynes were killed.
And,
Other than that, they didn't matter.
right.
And not outside of Arthur's story with Thomas Wayne, being his quote his father from what his mother said, but they're
Exactly.
only inside of his world.
Exactly. So why build out a character that has layers when you're not doing anything with it?
The only reason they built her out was to plant that doubt into Arthur about who she is and what she's doing there. And then she, as the antagonist, manipulates her way into being by his side.
And that's it.
That's it. I mean, that's it.
And
it's not as deep as as
they want you to believe
thought.
it is.
Yeah.
It could have been. And that's why I feel like the story gets kind of lazy.
But in the end, this is Arthur's end.
Yeah. I mean, I have no problem.
That's it.
I have no problem with where this movie ends.
Yeah.
With him dying.
And
like,
we joked around said it was all said and done. We joked around that if this wasn't such a very different Gotham and a very different movie, that's the origin of Heath Ledger's Joker. He started cutting his face.
Yeah, I mean,
how I got these scars. But
like like I said, I never expected him to be like the Joker because that's not what they ever said. But like, I have no problem. Like everyone's like, "Oh, the ending explained," or people are mad at how it ends. I'm like, "What'd you expect? They told you from the beginning what this was."
The title is The Final Goodbye.
The folly of two, madness for two. Um, so I didn't have a problem with him. I figured he was going to die. I just was trying to figure out how, like, what was going to happen.
Yeah. Well, in that, so he does in that when he basically turns when he abandons the Joker, when he abandons Joker and he's just Arthur. It's after he got beat by the guards after returning, after somebody who idolized him was killed by said guards who then got away with that murder.
Yeah.
After he discovered that basically he was everybody from Puddles from his talk with Puddles, that he became basically everybody who hated him, who treated him like crap, who made him scared of the world. And he is set up by those guards and killed.
Mm-hmm.
Like,
Dude,
because they don't escort, they escort prisoners like that, killers and stuff. Even in the psych ward, when they took him earlier, they escorted him, shackles and all. They just brought him, told him to come on, disappeared around the corner, and that was it.
I think the actor that played Puddles is amazing. Like his scene is so good. Okay, here's a question. When he was doing like a voice as the lawyer,
Yeah.
what did you think of?
I thought of Lane Smith from My Cousin Vinny.
See, my mind went to Gregory Peck from To Kill a Mockingbird as Atticus Finch.
Okay.
Because Atticus Finch is supposed to be like one of the great literary heroes, and the way he talked and thinking about that film and everything. And I haven't heard anyone else say that.
I have not seen that since school, so
Well, see, I watched it 2 years ago because we were doing it in school, like we were teaching it, and that was
I
where
just got
like
the Southern lawyer, you know what I mean?
and that's what I'm saying. Like, if you get a chance, check it out, everybody. Like, because I feel like that's kind of what he was doing. Because Atticus Finch is supposed to be this big, famous, like icon. Like, think about this is the '80s, that movie, and he's kind of doing like what that lawyer would be, you know. Because think about what Atticus Finch is, you know, the kind of he's portraying a innocent man that's guilty, or you know, and everything, or people are saying is guilty, and everyone in their minds already condemned him. But Atticus is, you know, taking on this case, and I think that's kind of what Arthur was doing.
Right. No,
So,
that absolutely makes sense, though. I wasn't sure what you like. I just went to the Southern lawyer route.
so I mean, that is where my brain went, was because I was like, that reminds me like a Gregory Peck type thing.
And honestly, that sounds like that probably would have been what they were getting at when they were discussing and creating that scene.
So, okay, anything else you got left for Joker?
No. I mean, like I said, I really enjoyed it. I thought it was a really great movie, and I think people should see it. And I mean, you know, love it or hate it, you know, I think they put a lot of work into it, and I think it turned out well. Like I said, it's not going to be something that I'm going to watch repeatedly, but I will definitely throw it in every few years, maybe 1 and 2, and just see how it goes.
Yeah, but okay,
because they're really good.
So now what we're gonna do is we're gonna go back to our news a little bit, and we're gonna talk Superman. Dun-dun, dun-dun. First up, we have Superman Good Guy Gang, an upcoming graphic novel kids comic that has Guy Gardner and Hawk Girl. That's going to be kind of to get ready for James Gunn's Superman for kids. Will I probably buy this for my children? You know I will. Next up, we have Walmart's new exclusive Superman McFarlane. It looks just
Superman.
different. it's just different enough that I'm like, dang it, I'm gonna buy it. It's got a cloth cape. It looks like a smaller body mold. The face looks more detailed and everything, but it's just a plain old regular Superman. But will I buy it?
It's just an Action Comics Superman, but it's the gold label.
Yeah, I'm gonna buy it. So
right.
And then as we prepare to talk about the Superman and Lois episodes, this was announced. Elizabeth Henstring will star as Lex Luthor's daughter in the final season of Superman and Lois.
Why am I blanking on her parts from everything? I saw it and I've seen it again and again, and I'm like, I can't think of where she's from.
Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. And she directed.
Yep.
She directed some episodes of Superman and Lois.
Oh, fantastic!
And
I did
then
not know that. That's awesome.
This got dropped yesterday during the day. It's a picture of Tyler Hoechlin here, and it appears that he has a new suit. And it looks basically that it's less padded. It is a little darker, and maybe we have more of a 3D style, chest sigil. So we didn't get to see the boots or anything, but it does look, like I said, just enough to look like it might be a new suit. I'm looking at the colors around him, to see if it's through a lot of filtering, but it doesn't look like it. Just looks like the blue is darker. Like it is a different suit, but I don't know. It's worth debating because it looks like this could be from a scene where he was fighting, because look at the stuff, but his suit's not tore up. So I don't know. It could be a new suit.
Well, they completed wrapping. They wrapped on this show, didn't they?
Oh yeah, it's done.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So this literally could be early or something later on in the series.
And if that's it just kind of, it's one of those things like, why release that yesterday? You know what I'm saying?
Well, getting into it, a lot happens out in front of Victoria Mays.
I know, but I'm just saying, why release that image? Because it's just one of those because of the emotional stakes. But let's get into it. Are you ready to talk about it? Let's talk about the 2-hour, 2-episode premiere of Superman and Lois, the final season. The End and the Beginning is the name of the first episode. Now, I went back to my handy dandy notebook and I took notes because
we need to get you your own Blues Clues music. So every time you go, my handy dandy notebook, we can just do like your own Krypton Report Blues Clues music.
Yes. Krypton Report Blues Clues. So let's start. My first question before we really get into the episode, and I pose this to all of our listeners because Solomon and I rewatched the season 3 finale. Well, just the Doomsday fight. I wanted to watch the whole episode, but we didn't get to. And my question is, how do we feel about Doomsday getting more Kryptonian powers? Because we've seen.
So he started off as this Doomsday started off as Bizarro. He already had the powers,
but
the ice.
Period. But I mean, period.
The ice eyes and the flame breath.
But I mean,
you mean overall?
Like Doomsday, because we've seen now Doomsday getting heat vision and other things through the Death of Superman animated film. the way they did Doomsday here.
It's like the evolution of Superman. He got more powers as time went on.
But that's my question. Do you like, because, now Doomsday's flying. Now Doomsday, has all the powers basically that Superman has too. Do we like that he's adapting and getting more Kryptonian powers? Or
I
do we
feel
like
like it depends on the interpretation,
Okay.
being either an abomination brought back to life, or a combination of Kryptonian human DNA or whatever he is in BVS, transforming Zod's body, and then in this one Bizarro being transformed, and this Bizarro already possessing and knowing and using all of those abilities prior to that. But if we were to ever see a live action Doomsday in a cinematic universe, in a more traditional Doomsday story, I would much rather prefer him be like the one we got in the Death of Superman. The one we got in the Death of Superman, the comic book, and like no more than what they did in the animated film, because he's barely got any sort of powers or anything in that one. He's more classic in that one.
Yeah,
but
he's got the heat vision though.
Yeah,
but that's just been my thing. Like observing.
That's the idea we discussed about him being basically some sort of perverted Kryptonian like DNA from when they possessed Superman in Justice League War, when Desaad had him hooked up to his machines.
Yeah.
Because he came from Darkseid. So in a sense, that one was in a way Kryptonian based, modern Kryptonian based, because Doomsday is ancient Kryptonian based, and there are no powers, and he was force evolved to become the ultimate killing machine and the ultimate adapting machine.
I would just say that I am really done with the Death of Superman story after this. Like, for
if they do it in the films, like, it needs to be like after
Corn Sweat,
a trilogy, and some Justice League movies, like,
I need at least
when you're
20
talking
years.
it's like after the Infinity Saga. Like,
I need
let's get a universe of DC movies before we hit on, even if Corn Sweat's still doing it in say 12 years.
I need 20 years.
Then we get a Death of Superman in the cinematic universe. If we got a Death of Superman in the cinematic universe after having him in a universe that's been like built and running like the MCU, and we did the Death of Superman in 10 to 12 years in the cinematic universe, and it was more true to like a comic book origin, not something changed and new, like, I think people would be all for it. I think you would be all for it.
I need like 20 years. I need to be like having grandkids. I need to be having my grandkids like, Grandpa, what's this Death of Superman story? You know what I'm saying? Like, that's where I need. I mean,
like, this story came out 50 years ago.
Yeah, like I need that type of Death of Superman, because it's kind of like it's just being used a lot.
Well, I think it's the idea of Superman is so powerful, and it's the idea of writing stories and threats with him, that how do you get bigger than his death? Well, I mean, that's what I think that's what why they keep just going back to that idea.
I mean, that's what you and I was trying to find the picture I made earlier. Like we've talked about before. How many times have we talked about before? It seems like some people, when it comes to Superman, they're like, oh, he only matters when he dies. Like, to make him matters, like we have to kill him off. So, but enough of that. Okay. That was just my quick conversation as I started here. Let's get into the episode. The episode starts showing the image that's used on our cover of like the sharded cape, and it's floating, and we slowly go through, and then it cuts to Jordan blowing out the fire in the barn with his cold breath. And like quickly we find out that Lex Luthor bought the hotel and there's changes happening at Luthor Corp. And everyone's like trying to figure out what's happening, okay? And from the beginning, Janine and I are both like, oh, so we're not like starting like, there's like recap stuff, right? We don't really move the Doomsday fight in Superman until a little bit later. And it was and I'm sitting there like, okay, so it's not like we're gonna open with the fight and then move the story. Like the story is going on while the fight is going on, and this fight takes a long time.
And they go far out. Like they go well past the moon.
And so we have Jordan listening for his grandpa / Sam. And then we have our first flashback scene with Clark and Lois. What'd you think about that? The flashback, the way they did the flashbacks and stuff.
They did the flashbacks so well in this episode. It's one of the things that they do so well in this series because I think still my favorite episode of the series is the flashback episode in season 1.
Yeah, I mean, so we do a flashback back to the
afternoon after he tells Lois that he's Superman,
and I'm laughing because the dialogue was so good where he tells her I love you and she's like, why did you tell me now? And then she references him seeing her on finding out that she was in love with him, and she
during the Superman interview in that flashback episode from season 1.
And then she makes the comment, he's like, oh, you probably got upset when I called you dorky, and he's like, no, I am a little dorky sometimes, like.
But that's season 1. That's episode and writing from season 1 that they continue and pick up in season 4.
It's so good, and he's like, it was the happiest day of my life. And then she goes, you want to go upstairs and make it the second happiest day of your life? And he gets the really cute where he's like, I've never. And she's like, in your childhood bedroom? And he's like, no, just I've never.
Never.
And it was adorable, and it was so cute, and it brought that smile. But at the same time, you kind of know, like, you're seeding us for the feels, like I messaged you before, like yesterday evening, I was like, I don't know if I'm emotionally ready for this.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I told you that I welled up and Jamie cried, but I didn't tell you, like, prepare for the emotional anguish.
Oh no.
When you watch these episodes.
Me and Janine were both like holding hands and watching it, and Solomon came home, today's like, are we gonna watch Superman and Lois? I said I watched it first, and I was like, because I wanted to make sure is everything you can watch, and then I'm gonna watch it like with him, like the Doomsday stuff, and some of the stuff with him, because I think he would understand, he'd like it, but at the same time, I'm just like, I told him, I was like, it's strong, and then we have this Lex versus Lois at the paper. Like, this Lex, man, how are you feeling about Lex?
He's mean, he's evil, he's a bad guy, and he's cruel, and he's completely egotistical. I mean, he's portraying a great Lex. I mean, I'd be pissed too if I was falsely imprisoned for 17 years. Yeah, I'd be pissed, but also he's Lex Luthor, and he's got billions of dollars, and he's evil, and he's tried to kill Superman forever. And his only excuse is, I told you. Like, all the evidence literally points to you being guilty, and everybody's supposed to take your word on it because I told you so. And that's just his ego talking.
What I think is great is, much like how this Clark Superman is farther in his journey, this Lex is farther in his journey.
Yeah.
And what I think is interesting is, it's like one of those, like, he got punished for a crime he didn't commit. All the other stuff he gets away with, but he goes to jail and gets punished for something that wasn't him, even though he's guilty of much more things. We have a flashback later of Clark and Lois in the Daily Planet. And it's funny because, like, they're watching a news story about not being able to confirm what happens with Superman and fighting Intergang. And then Clark shows up and he, like, pops in and is like, I can confirm the details.
Yeah.
And Lois finds a little tiny piece of kryptonite in his neck, and he says, why do they keep getting kryptonite? And it's shortly after they're married. And they say that he says, you worry, and she makes the statement that worrying is part of being in love.
Yeah.
Even though he's Superman. Like, so they're kind of seeing, like, how, like, there's this attitude, there's this air about we don't have to worry, he's Superman, you know. And even Sam Lane later is like, he's Superman, he always comes back. So Otis and Gretchen have Sam locked up. Okay, and they're gonna kill Sam. He tells him put one in the head and one in the heart for Sam Lane. And Gretchen, makes the announcement that her real name's not Gretchen. Who do you think she is? Like, do you think she's a big character or not?
I mean, I hadn't given it any thought,
I don't know
somebody else.
I don't know who it be, because we have this other character that I don't know the name of. I can't remember the name of, because that's with Lex, a younger female who's not a Tessmacher, who's not a Mercy Graves, who's a new character.
He said her name once, but
yeah,
I didn't catch it.
I have the episode playing here with the subtitles on, so I'm looking out for it while we watch. But
there you
go. I kind of wonder. Now, one thing I did like in this is we found out that Lex has a daughter from his ex-wife, who we don't get a name for, and his daughter's name is Elizabeth. Okay. I like that they went with Elizabeth, and maybe she goes by Liz to get those double L's,
Yeah.
Because I'm glad they didn't go the Lena route, because some people won't realize, if they followed along and say the Arrowverse shows, that in the comics sometimes Lena is Lex's sister and sometimes it's his daughter. So yeah. I'm glad they kind of went with just a new name to kind of break that up. So in my notes I wrote, I really want a flashback of Lex, like of Michael here as Lex with like the business suit and everything, clean shaven sometime in this series. And I laughed because we do get a Lex flashback in this, where he's at the Daily Planet arguing with Luthor, and he has like the lion's mane of hair, and you and I look at each other and she's like, that is some chunky hair. And
yeah, it is
big. And what I found interesting is he's still kind of wearing the jeans and leather jacket look.
And with the beard, he's like you said, lion's mane. It's all the way around and down.
And it is kind of like Lex Luthor Jr. was in the comics, like how he had all that hair and everything at the death of Superman. But I was just more shocked by, like, he wasn't like in the suit or anything like that. Like, he still was in like the leather jacket and jeans look for Lex Luthor. We learned that Lex is the one who pretty much discovered kryptonite because there's the line of dialogue about like revealing it to the world.
Yeah.
We have Sam get buried alive. And meanwhile, Jordan's been like listening for him the whole time, trying to find where Sam is. And eventually, he gets the idea to listen for the lady, and he hears her. And that's where they're able to go. And one of my favorite shots in this whole thing is when Otis goes to hit Jordan, and he like twists his arm and throws him. He does like the Smallville throw, into a truck. I was kind of.
Calls her Amanda.
Is that what it was? Oh,
Yeah.
the lady. Yeah.
Yeah.
I kind of was bummed that he didn't break Otis's arm.
I'm surprised Otis is alive after that.
You think? Because I was too.
That was man, he threw him into that freaking the side of that. I don't know if it was a crane or it was like a junkyard, so it was something very much like a crane or car press or something. But he threw him into the side of that thing like so fast and so hard. Like that wasn't just throwing somebody 30 feet and knocking them out.
Oh, I know. Like it was. I expected him to be crushed, and that kind of be like Jordan's accidental first kill.
Yeah, like ragdoll physics on his body after that.
And he's able to save Sam, and through this whole thing, like we see, Jordan and Jonathan really kind of trying to work together, and you can tell that everybody in the family right now is at a very level, like emotions, like they don't know what's going on. They have to kind of play it cool with because Clark's technically still fighting Doomsday. Now let's jump back to the Doomsday battle, right? Oh wait, hold on, one more thing. They reference Jonathan as Kid Superboy. They call the kid Superboy. So I just like hearing that. But so we have the Doomsday battle, okay? And we actually see more spikes grow from his eyes and from his face to get a little bit more of that classic Doomsday look.
Yeah, he does, as the fight progresses, become more and more Doomsday-like.
And Jania said, you know what I like about this Doomsday is his face still has hints in his eyes of tragedy and of the quote unquote humanity. So, so during that battle, Clark and Doomsday are fighting, and he starts using his heat vision towards Doomsday. There's this big explosion. Were you thinking solar flare?
I was thinking maybe he could solar flare in that moment, or if he was just, or if this was going to be like the blast that was going to kill him and Doomsday. Like I thought they were both gonna basically end up crashing down or whatever, dead, and that was just going to be like their final impact against each other.
So did I. Like, because we've been reading the New 52, and where we were, like, he was solar flaring left and right. So that was kind of my thought, was like he was just like going full board with the solar flare.
But I did not expect him to do what Luther asked in the beginning.
Hold on. We're gonna
We'll get there.
But one beat that I missed was when Lex comes into the diner and Jordan and Jonathan are sitting there eating. And that tense scene, And I looked at Jania and I was like, because everyone's not really paying attention to Lex. I'm like, how fun it be? Because at this time, Lex doesn't know about Jordan or about,
Or
um,
doesn't know that Superman is Clark.
he hasn't put it all together yet. Spoilers, he does. But I told Jania, like, what if Jordan had just been like real fast, broke his neck, and just looked around the room and everyone looked, he's just like, and everyone's like, just went back to eating. Like, it's just like, boom, snaps his neck, and everyone like just shrugs it off, like, Okay, so now let's get to the really bad part of this episode. The one where it really leaves you like, oh my god, they did that. We get okay, I don't want to talk about it, but we will. We get a flashback of Lois giving birth, and like how her and Clark interact. But then what happens is after the quote unquote solar flare, Jordan hears something returning, and Doomsday is alive. And Doomsday returns to Smallville and drops Clark's body and then flies off, and he ripped out Superman's heart.
Yeah, we don't see it. So he's giving him the heat vision, and he flies right in and he punches him in the chest. And there's a massive explosion, and the asteroid blows up. And Superman is floating out there, and he looks dead. But there's a large chunk of rock floating over his chest, and you can't see it. And then Doomsday flies him back, throws him down with like the worst rock physics I've ever seen. Like he just hits the ground like boom. But when Lois rolls him over, it's not just that he looks dead. Like they don't show it either on his chest. But then yes, Doomsday shows up to Lex Luthor and holds out his hand and opens his hand, and he has his heart in his hand. He ripped his heart out of his chest. He said, "When he's dead, bring me his heart."
And I was like the fact that Doomsday is alive and he has to have some sort of cognitive ability. He's not just this rage killing machine, because he shows up to Lex, he gives him the heart, and then he's like, good boy. And then Doomsday disappears.
Well,
So
during the fight, Superman rips out one of the XK spikes and stabs Doomsday in the heart. Doomsday appears to die. Like the light goes out in his body and everything, because like this Doomsday like lights up, and the light goes out in his body. He kind of slumps over, and then it all just comes back. It like sucks the XK inside of his body, and he comes back.
So he, like I said, he's not really the beast that we think of Doomsday as, like the mindless, killing machine. There's more, like I said, cognitive to him. Now, I lost my train of thought. Okay, hold on. The episode ends, like I said, where they're over top the body and they're crying and freaking out, and you have townspeople seeing this. It's Superman is on the ground, and you have the Jordan and Jonathan walking over to his body, and Lois is losing it. And that's
she tries to stop them from seeing it, but that's not going to happen.
Yeah, they run past their mom. They got to see that. I mean, and this is all intercut with footage that we have seen between Clark and Lois's journey over these three seasons, I guess you could say.
A lot of last season of him taking care of her, carrying her up the stairs, washing her hair, that type of stuff, putting her to bed,
and their relationship. And then so that's where they are. Now I want to jump back to something that Luthor says when he's talking to that lady. He mentions a certain name, James. What name is that he mentions?
So he gets a box from that lady, and he says, and they say that the box was made by Milton. Yes, and he's a real brainiac.
Yes. Okay.
So yeah, is this like a Milton Fine Brainiac situation?
We're gonna find
Where
out.
did the Milton Fine name start? It
Well,
wasn't
if you
Smallville,
joined us on Mullet, you know, bro. People can't see me react, but that's where we
Right.
are. Is like with the Milton Fine Brainiac. That's what
Tyler's jumping at me like,
step
I'm
up,
bust
bro.
you up. Yeah.
But so here's my question to you. Okay, the pieces are being put there, and I said this to Jania. This is they said they're gonna do something different, right? With this Death of Superman, they've already done one thing big different here is that Doomsday is still alive. Okay,
He's not a mindless killing machine, and he ripped out his heart.
After everything that you and I have been reading, okay, how do I want to say this? Do you think that they could, in this, with everything's going on, transform Clark's body into Super Doomed and have almost this Doomsday battle type thing between almost because he's heard his body's trying to regenerate and potentially he could be transformed into that type of Super Doom. Plus, if they bring in Brainiac, that was like the last element of that story.
That would be something that they've never done. That'd be something interesting and something pretty cool.
You know, and you and I kind of speculated like, what if, and we'll get into this in the next episode, he doesn't come back. So now,
right. Well, like in this first episode, you know, like they do some interesting things. With like, so there's the relationship between Jordan and Jonathan, and Lois is going through her radiation treatment. They mentioned that she's going through radiation, that her brain's foggy from the radiation.
Yeah,
and
she's coming out of
yeah, and they're worried about Superman. They're worried about their dad, and Jordan is listening for Grandpa. And then when Lois walks away, he listens to John's heartbeat, and he starts talking about how his heartbeat never rises, and how, you know, certain things. And he talks about the way he's built, and
he never gives into the fear.
Yeah, not giving into the fear and stuff. I like this actor playing Jonathan. The material he's given, he's doing well with it.
Janine and I had that similar conversation.
I think there's going to be more with those two this season.
I do too.
And I'm wondering what they're going to do, if they're going to go, you know, more superhero route, if John is going to eventually get any powers, what's going to happen with Jordan.
I really feel like they're remixing things and making it fresh. Now, here is my question. And this is part of why I wanted to watch the full episode end of last season, not just the Doomsday Battle.
Yeah, the finale. I watched the whole episode yesterday.
Okay, good.
7 o'clock.
I didn't get to, but this is, you're really wrapped up in the story, okay, in these two episodes, but you can feel where the absence of character is, because where is John Henry and where is Kyle? And Chrissy. There is no dialogue even given.
They were there they were absolutely there at the end of the finale episode. They were all downtown.
There is no dialogue given to where they are. And especially the way the second episode goes, because there's so many parts where I'm like, you would think Kyle would be here, or John
They
Henry.
mention Chrissy, but they don't.
Well, yeah,
they never show her. They never say where she is or anything.
And that's my biggest complaint right now, is because
and the same thing with John Henry.
Because
he was with Lana at the end of the season,
and that is, like I said. So with that in mind, we'll talk it through. But the first episode, it didn't bother me the way things were playing out. But in the second one, we'll talk it through. So the second episode.
Well, the first episode, we don't get any Lana.
No, we don't. Not at all.
Lana and Sarah show up at the beginning of this episode.
But the way that episode is structured, it didn't bother me.
Well, the way it's structured, I mean, honestly, too, with the flashbacks and things, but time-wise, season 3 finale continues into this. This
Yes.
is the same night. This is the time going on. And then when this episode ends, the next one picks up at the very same spot. This 3 episodes are in the same night.
Well,
or
that
at least a
episode.
chunk of.
Well, that first episode, that's several days. If you look at it, like it's not just like one day. Like there's time, because we see them in the diner during the day. They're looking for Sam. It's day. Then they're burying Sam at night.
Okay, so the fight happens at night. So then the most of it happens the next day.
So the
and then they're
fight
burying
takes
Sam at night. The fight takes like 24 hours.
Yeah, there's time in that battle. And so we're on like, the next night or so, and like you said, it picks up and it kind of like backs up to where the last episode ended with Doomsday returning, but now we're seeing more of the townspeople. And we're introduced to, we're seeing things from a different perspective. And this is where, like we said, all the townspeople see this and they start going towards Superman. And Lana pulls up and sees it, and she's with Sarah, and Sarah's the one that kind of acknowledges his mom. And Lana starts saying, people get back Lois Lane's close friend, Superman. And she's the one, but we have this new character, Chuck. And I'm kind of skipping ahead here, but Chuck sees, and Chuck puts it together, and later goes to Lana and says, it's about the Kents. And Chuck basically tells Lana, like, I figured it out. Like, I know that the Kents, Clark, is Superman.
And it's from an emotional standpoint too. I just
would have liked
how they reacted. He died. He recently lost his wife, and he knows the pain of actually losing somebody, and that's how he put it together.
But that's a scene, man. Like, could you imagine him going to the farm and looking at Lois and being like, I know what it's like to lose my spouse, I lost my wife, you lost your husband. And he says, and you do kind of the Spider-Man 2 thing, like, I won't tell anybody. Because, it's kind of like, it's coming from Lana, where she's like, he states he's not going to tell anybody because of everything that Superman has done for the town, for the world. Like, how much better would that scene have been if it's this character, Chuck, going to Lois and the boys and saying that to them?
Right. Well, they plant his character in the episode. He's in the diner. He does stand up to Luther. Are you boys, everything okay?
Yeah.
And then he's outside saying goodbye to like somebody at like the corner store kind of a thing. When Superman when the monster returns with Superman's body.
So then we go to the forest. Oh man, the fortress. Jordan takes Clark, and we see Lara. And my favorite line is when he's arguing with her, and he's like, it's Kryptonian technology, you can fix him. And she's like, we can't without his heart. The organ's missing. And he goes, I'll take him and I'll fly him into the sun. And I had to laugh because, like, I was like, Ginny, I'm like, that's kind of like the cure-all in every Superman comic. When he like loses his power, whatever, just fly him through the sun. And so I like that they threw that line out, like, as a possible, like, no, that's not going to work. So I appreciated that, because it really, works. But he gets put in suspended animation. And I put in my notes, like, the thing about this world, this Earth that we're on, there's no Kara. There doesn't seem like there's any other heroes. Like Clark wasn't part of like a Justice League or any kind of team. It was just him.
Yeah. Yeah. He's the sole hero on this Earth. They did talk about that in the last season. No, the end of season 2 with the Bizarro Earth.
And speaking of Bizarro Earth, in my notes I put Tal. Will he return, or are we just done with him? Like, is it potential that he could return as a in one episode or something? I do really like so we have Lana and Sarah show up and at the farm, and this is when we find out that Luther bought the historical hotel and the mayor approved of it because Luther has all these shell companies, that he bought the hotel and stuff through. But
Yeah.
and I put in my notes, like, this is the episode they start to have to accept that Superman's dead, like everybody does. And I thought, how are they going to explain Clark's absence?
Yeah. Well, Lois writes the article, The Death of Superman.
Yeah, she does. And for her paper. And I just want to point out, like, when they say Eckworth Industries, isn't that a Superboy reference? Wasn't that Lex's, like, the identity that he assumed, right? We talked about that previously.
That sounds familiar.
So I thought that was a nice callback to earlier in this series, but it is reference to Superboy the series. One line we get that I was kind of interested by was we get that what was her name? You said Anna or whatever. Amanda.
Yeah.
See, all A names run together. But she says that Janet Olsen from the Daily Planet wants to do an interview with you. I was like, Janet? Who's Janet? Like,
yep.
I'm like, why?
They
why not?
They went the gender bent route with the Olsen here, kind of like the.
But we have Jimmy Olsen cast this season.
Do we?
Yeah.
Well, I forgot about that.
So I was like, are they going to do something different with him, with his character? Why? Or if it's not, like, why not be a Cat Grant or a Ron Troop if we're just going to throw a name out there,
Yeah.
But that's when we have the Amanda trying to get Lex to return to Metropolis, to go back, because Luthor Corp needs his guardianship, his guidance and everything. And he has the really cold line about Superman's dead. Let's just enjoy the moment. And I was like, dang, like, this Lex is hardcore. Most evil, hardcore Lex. And I bet if we did a battle of Lex Luthors, this is the Lex that would win. Like in a fist fight. Like, you just put every Lex in a room together, this one's coming out walking.
He is mean, and if you just put, like, the ones that are just like the people, because if you do live action ones, yes,
like we
live
did
action ones, yeah. Because I was thinking of different versions of Lex. Like, he's pretty badass in other versions, mostly comics in animation.
Yeah, but I'm like referencing our, like we did our Batman battle bracket. If we did a Lex Luthor battle bracket, this is the Lex that's coming out, the champion.
Yeah, Warren Eckworth. Yes, that is the name he goes by in Superboy.
I thought so.
Yup.
So we have this scene where, like, the boys on here
love that pull for the series, pulling from Superboy TV.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
We need to reference, like, that show. Like, I would love to see Stacy appear. Like, it's not going to happen now because we know this is all wrapped up, but like in some sort of like Superman media, just giving her the credit she's due. But like, the boys are very impulsive in this episode, the way that they're like trying to make plans and not talk. And Jordan, is about like, I got powers trump being psycho anytime. But they're not thinking that Lex has been plotting and planning and is, ahead of them. He has money and power and desire. And Jordan makes that appearance to Lex at the bar is an amazing scene because he's like hovering there and Lex just swats him away. And he says, if you come after,
he even steps him down.
Yeah, he's like, you come towards an enemy, you be prepared to kill.
And he stepped, like, he's floating and he swats him off and he walks towards him. He continues to walk towards him, and he backs up, like he keeps the same distance between them.
And Jordan flies out, and this is where Lex puts it together, because so he baits, like, this is the scene that pissed me off, is like he goes into the diner and Sarah thinks she's going to hatch this plan to keep Lex in the diner, by talking to him and being nice or whatever, while Jonathan is going through his apartment or Lex's hotel room looking for Superman's heart or whatever. And then Lana shows up and her and Sarah talk, and Lex gets up and leaves. Well, this was probably one of the best parts as far as tension is Lois gets a phone call, and it's like it says Clark, it's Clark's voice, but then it changes to like, both of your sons are in danger. You have to save one by pushing, was it 1 for Jonathan, 2 for Jordan?
I don't remember. They were each assigned a number. Push 1 to save Jordan. Push 2 to save Jonathan.
And we're cutting back and forth between where Jordan, because we learned that Superman's heart beats 3 times, unlike a human heart that beats twice. I'd never heard that in any other media, so I thought that was pretty cool.
Yeah, just some way of differentiating a Kryptonian heart from a human heart.
And so what happens is Jordan, of course, goes to find the heart. He finds a Superman action figure that's beeping. And Lois is at the house looking for the boys. She has the phone. And we see someone coming for Jordan. Well, it's Lana. Lana gets Jonathan, coming for Jonathan. It's Lana. Lana gets Jonathan to leave the house after Sarah had told her what their plan was. But then we see that Jordan's trapped by a team who have, of course, kryptonite weapons. Lex knows about kryptonite, man. Like, these kids are not thinking. And Lex is right there and has him, and has like a device that's shooting a high-pitched frequency into his head. And so while that's going on, Lois has the phone, and she presses a button for one of the boys. We don't see which one it is. We don't know which button she pressed to save, because it says if you don't pick, they'll both die. She pushes a button. Okay. Well, in a few seconds, Jonathan walks in, and we see Lex in the containment unit. Confronts Jordan. He has, the heart. He drops it on the ground. Jordan can't reach it, and then Lex steps on it and twists it. And the way the scene plays out, I feel like Lois picked Jordan because Lex lets him live and says something about something has to pay or whatever, and that's when he crushes the heart.
Yeah, he says I could kill you, but I won't. But I do have to take something, and that's when he smashes the heart. Yeah, I mean, I'm not sure. Like, she does. It does sound like she presses a button, and it does say like, I feel like she would. I don't know. It's really tough to say which one she would choose. Obviously, they're both her kids. Like you could even make a choice, because she just had this conversation with Lana about, because she yelled at him for like, you got to go back and back first. So she yells at Jordan for approaching Lex and giving him the pieces he needs to discover that he's Superboy and that Clark is Superman. And she yells at him, and she says that I warned you, you can't go after Lex. You can't go near him. You're not ready. You can't, you're not your father. And she kind of backs off a little bit and says, not yet. And then, so he's questioning that with Jonathan, like, and he says, do you agree with her that I won't be like dad or as good as dad? And he says, I don't think anybody can be as good as dad.
Which is an exact true statement. Like,
absolutely, yeah. I mean, there's the whole reason he's Superman. He's the first one. And then he goes again. And then when she is having the conversation with Lana about, she gets called to go, and that's when she finds out that Chuck knows who they are. But that Jordan, she has this conversation about Jordan using his powers for fame, using his powers to prove himself, and that she had hoped that the powers were going to help him through the issues that he had, and she's not sure. And she says that he might be the worst person to be able to have gotten these powers. So picking at that moment, you can really see it. Like, does she say that because maybe Jordan shouldn't have these powers and she chooses Jonathan? Or does she pick Jordan because she feels guilty for saying those things about her son? Because she has to think honestly, especially with those abilities, she has to think honestly about who her kids are and who Jordan is and who he's going to become. So, like, you can really honestly see it from either point of view. Who would she pick in that moment if she picked anybody? And for what reason? There's a lot of reasons there that I just had to go through. I had to go all the way back to come up to that idea.
Yeah.
You have to go all the way back through the episode.
So it was intense. And so what we find out is that Elizabeth came to the DOD when Lex was getting out of prison, because he's been out of prison for a month and he hasn't returned over a month to Luthor Corp. And the only person who knows where Elizabeth is Sam Lane, because they got someone to flip at the DOD. And I kind of laugh because I'm like, oh, well, you almost killed the one person.
You're lucky he didn't die.
But the episode ends, and this is where they did something once again that's very different. Is Jordan basically is telling them about, like, Clark's in suspended animation, and they're going to kind of say goodbye to Clark, and they see him at the fortress, and Lara tells him that he prepared something, and then Clark appears because he is now programmed in the fortress as the fortress AI.
Yeah.
And it looks like he has a little bit of a new suit. It looks like his black costume that he had with some extra stuff added onto it.
Yeah, it looks a little more like probably like a traditional
Kryptonian,
not so formal, not so superheroic, fighting type suit, maybe something more leisurely.
And that's where the episode ends, is that they have the Kryptonian AI that is their dad. And that's, you and I had speculated before, like, oh my God, what if they did something as crazy as they don't have any Superman in the current timeline? It's either flashbacks, or now we have him as this AI, so that Tyler is present. I'm like, what if that's something? And I'm
still very weary on that notion.
So am I. Like, so am I, dude. Like, just because I have a prediction doesn't mean that's what I want to happen.
Yeah. I'm unsure if that is actually his heart.
I had that thought too.
Like, is it not? I could see
him doing
both
that
ways.
Because because Jania and I talked, she's like, Lex is so egotistical, about things, and Lex knows the family secret.
Yep, he has all the control now.
And
basically.
I said, I still would have taken the busted up heart and took it to the fortress. Like, you can repair it too. Like, it's here, repair it, and we'll see how things play out. Like, it's definitely a different, like, the whole fact that
because after he stomped it, he left it and walked away.
The fact that Doomsday is still alive and out there, just kind of like hiding somewhere, is trippy. But yeah, I mean, it's emotional. I'm in to see what they do. Like, I'm curious. And once again, I'm gonna end this. This is the episode where I'm like, where is John Henry and where is Kyle? like that. Like it's not even like John Henry's doing a mission for the DoD.
And where is Sophie?
She's with Kyle. She's with Kyle, dude. But there's not even dialogue acknowledging them. That's what bothers me.
Well,
it's not even like in this episode, like John Henry's posted it out with because Sam's not in this episode, so there's not even like a line of dialogue like John Henry's guarding your grandpa in the hospital.
Well, when they left, the last you saw them like all interacting in the season finale was talk of going to Metropolis, moving to Metropolis. She could go to like the DoD Academy and stuff. So there was talk of that, but this is only within a couple of days. They hadn't even made the decision to leave at that point. So it kind of almost did sound like it though when he was talking to Lana, when John Henry was talking to Lana before they got busy. And then so they could very well have gone off to Metropolis, but still on the day that Superman dies, they disappear to Metropolis.
Right. And it's
if
in the
you
paper,
if you did
like,
watch, you probably didn't because you probably watched like iTunes or your wherever you bought it. But the trailer for next week, the 19-second trailer that was out does show John and Nat.
Yeah, I try not to watch. I try not to watch those.
Well, I watched it live, so I saw it. It was right at the end.
Yeah,
I watched it live on TV. I rewatched it after I bought the 2 episodes on Prime. So I saw it. Normally, I don't see those because I don't watch it live because the commercials. We already have to suffer through the CW release schedule. It's a lot to ask to sit through commercials too.
I mean, yeah, but it's like why I can't watch stuff on the CW app. Is because it's the same commercials over and over. So,
but
we have
they were. That wasn't entirely my point, though. I know that I know I was getting to that they were coming. But the Lana of it all, we've got Lana in this episode, and she finds out that he has these shell corporations, that he bought the hotel across the street. So now she's looking to find other places that he's going to buy. And they talk about 2 other places, Chandler's Field and the Sullivan Farm.
Yeah.
So Chandler's Field, I'm pretty sure that's where the windmill was that was in a few episodes of Smallville before that super aging kid blew up the place.
Hey, that was a great episode with Ryan.
That wasn't Ryan.
Yeah, it was. No, okay, I'm mixing the 2 together. Anyways,
that was the second kid. Ryan had 2 episodes, and then this is the baby they found in a crater.
Yeah. As I said, I had to mix them up for a second.
Yeah,
but man, it's too much to remember. Okay.
We've got a lot to remember.
It's a lot. And then I have real life to remember.
Exactly, right? Like that's just too much. Like Superman pushes out the real life.
But just think we have 8 more episodes to go. That's it. 8 more.
Yeah.
And we're supposed to be getting them straight. We're not supposed to have a break. It's supposed to be
thank God.
Like it's supposed to be,
every time I put on Superman, I put on the finale, and she was and Jamie kind of was like, ugh. And then it went off, and I started at like 7, so it was done early. And then I turned on the CW at 8:00, and it came right on, and she was like, ugh. And I'm like, don't you be doing that crap.
Yeah.
And she's like, are they going to release it like they have been? I said, I know. They lose all the freaking momentum with that stop and go release stuff that they do.
And I mean, that's why, like, I'm done with the CW. Like, I refuse to watch on the app. I buy the show and I watch it because I want the show on, the network, but they're supposed to, play it straight.
Thank God.
Because
I'm happy to hear that. And maybe you said that before, but thank God.
That's what I read, because, and part of it, think about it, is like they want to be done with this Superman before next year. Think
Yeah.
about that. Like
Thank
this,
the gods.
this Superman ends in 2024. And this was kind of like our prediction. It didn't work out exactly like we thought, but like the idea that Superman and Lois would end, before 2025, so that next year it's one Superman for DC Universe, next year's the year of Superman, and there's no other competing. So, but that is our episode, and we're going to try this new outro video here that we've been working on, see how this works. So let's check this out, good listeners. Hit us up on our socials. You'll hear the plugs. Just look for Krypton Report, and let's see how this goes.
Look up in the sky!
All right, Jania and I are here at the theater.
What's up?
Ready to do Joker 2. Jania, thoughts real quick beforehand going in.
Super, super open. I do not have a whole lot of expectations. I know it's going to be really artsy and stuff. And let's face it, Lady Gaga is a great actress. So I'm excited to see, I've heard a lot of really beautiful things about her characterization in American Horror Story?
American Hustle?
No, American Horror Story.
Oh, okay.
The TV show?
Yeah.
Apparently she did an amazing job in that.
I forgot she was.
Yeah, she was in it. And, I don't know, I've seen her act in other things. I think she does a good job. I'm excited to see her in the role of Harley. I know it's a different role. So, I don't know, I'm very open. I'm
open because, one, and I've said this a billion times, Joker, the movie, was never a comic book accurate story telling.
No, it's an artsy interpretation of the Joker. Let's be real.
Let's be real. It was a movie about mental health, and they were like, we can't sell this and make a bunch of money. So if we call it Joker, about the Joker, it'll do well. And, I mean, if you take that movie, you strip away just the words, Joker, Gotham, Wayne, and replace them with just generic terms, New York City.
You wouldn't think that it was the Joker.
Mental hospital, not Arkham. Call him the clown.
Right.
You're like, okay, you wouldn't come out like that. Felt like a comic book movie. It's not.
No.
It was a big scam, and they made $1 billion. So, Todd Phillips, he's doing his movie, whatever he wants it to be for number 2. Once again, just using enough loose terminology and imagery to get by. And the fact is, the first movie, which we will be watching and commentating on, is all about an unreliable narrator who has mental delusions. So you pretty much can do whatever you want with mental delusions in the story. So I have no expectations because I'm not sitting here waiting for it to be like this comic portrayal truth of the characters. I'm just kind of like, it's going to be a movie that they're trying to scam us on again, but will I be entertained? And the whole musical aspect, let's see what that means, because
it's probably going to be very minimal.
I'm like, is it going to be minimal? I don't know, because people call La La Land a musical, and I didn't feel like that was a musical.
No, it's really not, though. It's not like your classic musical.
And I think that's the case.
That's probably the vibe that's going to be happening here. Is very similar to La La Land, if that's what we're calling it.
And that's what my thought process is, And I mean, they talked about music playing a big part in the first one. And I like the first one well enough, but I'm not like, Joaquin's the best. No, he's not the best. If Batman showed up, he'd literally beat the shit out of Joaquin Phoenix.
Oh, 110%.
Like, he's not even smart enough to even, do anything to trip Batman.
Right.
Okay, he's not a genius.
We're not seeing that
chemist.
yet. Maybe we'll see it here. Maybe they lean into that more here. I don't think they will, but I'm just saying it's a possibility. I said, I'm super open.
I'm just open to whatever, and we will be back when it's... All right, Jania and Tyler in the car right after the movie. Jania, opening thoughts.
Okay. Honestly, I'm not sure what to think. I don't really have a whole lot of strong opinions about the movie one way or the other. I'm kind of in this weird neutral zone. And I really don't know fully what I was watching. What was the arc of the story? I guess I just feel like there's so much there that didn't come together for me.
It's pretty much what I expected it to be.
Yeah?
I mean, I wasn't looking for Todd Phillips to lean into comics, and build strong story that way.
Not at all.
I wasn't expecting this to be the Joker. I mean, they've said before that maybe Arthur's the one who inspires the real Joker.
Which kind of seems like what was happening.
And which kind of seems like what happened at the end. Which I kind of wish, just for shits and giggles, they would have got Cameron, is it Monaghan? I can't remember how to be the guy that, you know, at the end. Because I think that'd be just kind of funny. You know, and as far as the arc of the story, I think it's Arthur. In the sense, like, they try to wrestle with the idea he's two people, right? He's Arthur and then he's Joker. And technically they're the same. It's just kind of his Joker's a performance. And he just kind of at the end admits he's just Arthur. It's just that's who he is. And that Joker is not real. It was just... And... you know, he gives up on himself kind of thing. Now, parts of it I'd like to watch again to see if they're trying to play any kind of tricks with what's real and what's not besides the obvious. Much like in the original, there's things that are in that movie that make you question what's real and what's not.
Right.
Besides the obvious, like, you know, him with his girlfriend, quote unquote.
Yeah.
But like time and stuff and what's really going on. And in this film, I mean, I'm more interested in actually seeing what Harley's story is.
Yeah, like, all of that was extremely vague. Also, like, you never saw any indication of her parents, yet they talked about as if her parents were still alive, you know.
That she came
that she
from
lived
money.
with them, that she came from mud. Yeah, all of this stuff, and it's just kind of like, there's nothing. There's nothing that shows any part of her life at all. So it almost leaves you into a question of, like, we know that she's not a figment of his imagination, but how far or how much of she is a figment of his imagination? Am I making sense?
Yeah,
The
like,
words aren't coming out right.
I feel like she was real the whole time and everything, but like once he didn't really want to admit that he was Joker, like that was something inside, like that's who he was kind of thing, she wanted nothing to do with him.
Right.
You know, and it's interesting because we get that scene where it looks like she's putting a gun to her head. I mean, she is putting a gun to her, you know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
And then we see her standing on the stairs and she cut her hair and everything. And now I want to go back and watch the trailers because there was a couple of shots from the trailers that I remember that were not in this movie. One was her in the elevator and the elevator door closing, not parroting, but like being the same shot from the first movie with him.
Yeah.
The other was Arthur
them dancing down the stairs.
Yes, them dancing down the stairs.
Yeah.
Because if you see, like, she gets up in the court when he admits that it is no Joker, it's just Arthur, and walks out, and she told him she was pregnant, and was that true or not? I mean, I take it as yes, because they don't really give us anything that says that no.
Right.
But we know she's not actually reliable in some of the stuff she says, too.
Those are the things that are just kind of, like, left up in the air that I'm like, what is going on here? Like, there's no solidity to it. You know, I feel, the movie feels very ungrounded. That's the best way I can describe it.
I mean, like, ungrounded when it should be grounded. Because I don't mind the singing and stuff. Because, one, she sings out loud. Okay, you sing out loud. And when you're in a good mood, have fun because you're a singer. So that, to me, doesn't feel far-fetched.
Right.
The musical-esque numbers are all in his head.
Yeah.
So, you know, they work because it's in his head.
Right.
You know? So I wasn't being, you know, taught to believe that. I mean, what sucks is he never had the green hair or anything like that in the current or...
I mean, his followers did.
Yeah, his followers did, but he never, like, went full Joker in reality.
Right. Maybe that's kind of the point, too, is, like, that he couldn't fully embody it because part of him was too human. And that's, like, the connection that we got between him and Mr. Puddles was, like, Mr. Puddles brought out some of the human in him, in Arthur. And it makes me wonder, like, I don't know. Do I want another movie like this? Probably not. I'm good with the two that we got. But young guy at the end, and I don't know if you want to talk about that now or not. Can I spoil it?
Yeah.
Okay. The young guy at the end who kills him, and who then after he kills him, is laughing and stuff, and he like cuts his mouth and whatnot. Like, that seems like, if you watch throughout the movie, it's kind of like an unnerving thing. You see him in the background, but he's always watching Arthur. Always. In every single freaking scene, he is watching Arthur, if you see him. I don't know if you paid attention to that or not.
Yeah.
So, to me, I already kind of knew that that's what was going to happen. That he was going to end up killing him. And I almost kind of feel like he takes on the persona of what we would consider to be the Joker. He was... It just felt more like that.
Yeah.
Because we got the insanity of the Joker at the end. We got the true, gruesome...
Yeah.
Joker at the very, very end. So I think it's interesting. I don't know.
I feel like...
I wish there was more.
Yeah, I feel like there was more story that we just didn't get. Like,
Yeah.
And I wasn't even looking for, like, more of the comic tie-in. I mean, look, I've said it again and again. Like, they're not trying to be comic. Like, they even said the state of New York. They're trying to just say Gotham is in New York.
But they had Harvey in there. They had Harvey
Dent
in there.
Let's not disrespect Harvey Dent.
And they
like
did.
They did.
I know.
They just wanted to use his name. And then it makes me mad, because then if you're going to do that, then why not use other names of characters?
But you see that they screwed his face.
Just enough. Like, you know what I'm saying? Like, to me, that's just disrespectful.
Yeah.
To the character. Because, like, okay, look. It almost makes me want to watch the two films, like, almost side by side in a sense. Because the way they did Harvey is kind of like the way they did the Waynes. Where, we're going to have them walk down an alley, and then a clown gunman's going to follow them. Mm-hmm. And you're like, oh no. But, like, there was no mention of the Waynes in this movie. There was a shot of a building with Wayne on the side.
Well, that's weird, though. Like, we had that in the first one. And without any of that being present, it feels disjointed, disconnected.
Like, there wasn't even a line, like, when they were doing all the media talking about the trial of, like, because they talk about the riots and the, and stuff, like, that caused the death of mayoral candidate Thomas Wayne and his wife, leaving behind their son, Bruce. You know what I'm saying?
Right, exactly.
Something like that. I was happy that they had at least Mr. Puddles and the faux girlfriend, played by Zazie Beetz, can't remember her name, back from the first movie just to build that continuity.
Right.
We don't have an idea of how much time happened in between them, but they said they made a TV movie. I was kind of see if there was going to be a more meta commentary, like we would see clips or something from that TV movie that they made. Mm-hmm. Much like, how in Scream 2 we see clips of Stab, the movie that was made. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Something like that.
That connects the dots.
That just kind of could have been interesting. So I leaned over at you at one point and I said, what I found interesting was they dropped the line that Harley, her parents have money and stuff. And what I found interesting is she moves around a lot. Like, she got to see Arthur there in the cell at the end. There was one chair left in the courtroom for her.
Yeah, it was weird.
And that she got to sit in the courtroom, knowing who she is. I found that interesting because all the people outside and even people in the court standing up. And I feel like they really set it up when we see Arthur take his medicine. Then the next time, the way he looks at it, as if some pill or something's missing or something's different in his medicine cup. Because then later Harley says, stop taking your medicine. He's like, I already have. And the way he looks at the nurse and kind of smiles. So the idea that maybe Harley was influencing somehow, like so he could be off his medicine to start going back to being Joker.
Right.
And like you asked me, do you think she's a plant? And I kind of was waiting for it to be something where she actually worked for the state or for the hospital and was in there manipulating things to get a certain outcome.
Right.
And she was more of the orchestrator of all of this. Like the car, everything was all her at the end. Or there was an even more of a twist that she was really with that other dude who ended up killing Arthur or something. You know, like...
Which I was really hoping for that at the very end. I was like, man, that would be cool. Like, if we saw something where, like, she broke him out or something like that, you know, or good job. Like, I don't know, like, something.
And we saw, like, she was more of the evil one.
Yeah.
And everything, and she was using Arthur. Because what I did think was interesting, the newspaper that has, like, a mugshot of her, but yet she supposedly checked herself in.
Weird stuff.
In and out, you know, on her own free will.
Right.
So why would they have, like, a mugshot looking of her?
Well, the only thing that I can think of is when she stole that TV. I don't know.
But then she would have had to get arrested and, like, and all that, and...
She could be, you know,
out
on bail if her parents... We have all of these, like, holes. We have all of these holes, all of these questions, all of these open spaces where it's like, what the hell is actually happening here?
That's my problem, is don't create these open spaces for a character that you're trying to make and then not do anything with it.
That's the weird part.
Not really explore that character.
Because I feel like you're taking us away from, like, an art piece, which I guess is what they're trying to create here, you know, and more into this, like, I don't know, you're trying too hard. You're trying too hard to make it an art piece.
Yeah.
Does that make sense? Like,
yeah, I mean, it does, and, like,
make an avant-garde film, sure. I'm all for that stuff, but, like, I don't know, also make it make sense.
Yeah, give it, and
especially if you're attaching that moniker and that world. Like, that is such an established world. Like,
if you don't want to give us more with Harley, then don't give us all the details about stuff, because then you make her like, she went to master, she has master's degree, this. Well, then it's like, okay, you're making her more interesting, but
we're not going to tell you anything about her.
Yeah, we're not going to tell you anything about her, instead of other just seeing that she's more psychotic because she's in love with his fantasy person, and that's who she wants to see and be a part of or whatever.
Right.
And I don't know, it just kind of fell flat. I'm kind of like interested, like, why would you show us the scene of her putting a gun towards her head? Like, unless there was a scene and let they read. But even then, like, why would you edit that in? Because I was like, that seems like she was reenacting certain things almost like she had seen in the movie about Arthur or something. Because it goes into where it looks like she's in his old apartment.
Yeah.
Like, she was so obsessed that she was living in the old apartment or something. Like, why not show us that she was a crazy obsessed fan of Joker? Like, she was living there, you know? Mm-hmm. And because her getting ready kind of is like when he was getting ready.
Right.
You know, like I said, they cut that elevator scene of her. And everything that kind of felt like it was building to her. And one of my biggest things about this film is I felt like it was a little too long.
I agree, especially for the content that we received.
If it had been more intriguing things that were going on, building these characters, sure. And, like, there's just certain parts where they're singing. I'm like, you could have snip that down and just made it a little bit more.
It was there. So I'm going to say this, I'm going to bluntly say this. It was kind of boring at times. Like, kind of not exciting.
I think because you're kind of waiting for more to happen, you know? You're kind of like, all right, what's going to happen next? You know, because you don't know. And then I mean, I'd watch it again, and I'll buy it, because I'd like to dissect it, you know, and watch it, because I don't think it's a horrible movie.
Right.
But, all right, we're pulling back at the house. Okay, so we're back in the house. We're going to give quick final thoughts. Jenny and I we rewatched the trailers, the 2 for original Joker, and then 2 for Joker 2, because the one that I pointed out to her, I kept talking about that elevator scene that is just like a reflection of the elevator scene from the first film, this time with Harley. But the big thing to point out is she has the cut hair, and that she's wearing the outfit that Joker finds, or Arthur finds her when he's on the stairs coming to his home at the end, where she, you know, gives him the goodbye and everything. Because I told Jania, like, it was weird that scene that she still had makeup and was still looking the way she was. Because I can understand cutting of the hair is trying to change the identity and everything and be something new. If she had been more crazy or something where, like, she is embracing Joker's spirit, like she is now Joker or something. I don't know. It just feels like they lost something with her story and the narrative and in the edit. But Final thoughts, Jew. And what would you rate it out of 10?
5 out of 10 probably for me.
Damn.
I mean, it wasn't my favorite. It wasn't my favorite. I felt bored and underwhelmed in the end, to be honest with you. The best thing about the film, of course, I think Joaquin Phoenix is a great actor, but I really loved seeing Lady Gaga in the role of Harley Quinn. Wish it was actually Harley Quinn, but I don't know. I just felt underwhelmed. I felt very underwhelmed, and there was so much dead space, like we said. Like, I don't know.
Underwhelming is probably the one word to sum it up. I think I'm around a 6, maybe a 7, and that's more because of the performances and the artistry of actually the filmmaking. But the
story was not there.
But the story wasn't there because I just I feel like if you just would have done some more between him and her and connected the dots a little bit more to make a tighter story, because, and I'm even trying to think of how they did the story and stuff in the first film where you felt like it was a stronger narrative, and
it was like they tried to do too much or something. I don't even know if they tried to do too much. It was like they opened the door for so much, but the payoff was like so little.
I almost wonder if they would have ended this movie back to him sitting in that room from the first one, and he was laughing, and she's like, "Arthur, seriously, what are you laughing about?" And he's like, "You wouldn't get it." And like the whole thing has been in his head from the beginning. I don't know, something, because like that's how the first movie does, is it plays with certain elements. This one, we knew what was in his head
and what wasn't.
Yeah,
there was no surprise or anything like that. Not really.
I mean, it was a twist, if you want to call it that, in the first movie, when you realize that all these dates and all this time he had with that one girl were in his head.
Yeah, and we didn't have any of that in this.
Yeah, and there wasn't that kind of surprise. And then the other thing was the big, like we talked about, the stair scene of them like outside the courthouse dancing. And that feels like a big scene because you have a bunch of extras and everything around to cut that.
To just do that for the trailer just feels weird.
Yeah, it feels like if you cut that, I'm like, I can think of some other things throughout this film to cut, but yeah. Okay, what letter grade will we give it?
We have to do a letter grade?
C+? C+, B-?
I'd go with like a C or C- for me. And the reasoning is, once again, I'm sorry, but majority of the time if I go to see a movie, I'm seeing a movie because I want to see a story.
True.
So if the story is not there for me, that's a pretty big miss, you know? But I like the two characters to a point. So, I don't know. It was weird.
All right.
I like the first one more.
Yeah, so there it is. That's Ginny and I's review, discussion of Joker Folie à Deux. Or just what people call Joker 2 because they don't want to speak French.
Correct.
All right, everyone. It's the next day after seeing Joker 2, and I've had time to think a little bit more. And I'm in the car, so this is what I do, right? I did like it, but I think Jania hit it on the head that it is just kind of underwhelming. I didn't have really expectations, but I think where I really find my most frustration with it is more in the Harley Quinn character, because I feel like you had a really talented actress and a really rich character, and you didn't do enough with her. And I feel like I know there are scenes cut, and I'm curious why and what. I never had Todd Phillips up there as, in the DC universe, because he showed in the first movie he really wasn't playing in the DC universe. He was delivering us a film he wanted with the sheen of DC, just enough to use the character names to make money. And I think that's his biggest trick he pulled on everybody. And, you know, Joaquin Phoenix did an amazing job. And he finished Arthur's story. And I think it just shows that Arthur had mental health issues. And in the end, you know, thinking like where he says, you know, there is no Joker, there's Arthur. And I'm like, is he trying to say he has... They try in the film to say he has two personalities. One is Arthur, one is Joker. And that Joker was this alternate personality. Which is interesting when you look at the juxtaposition between... They have Harvey Dent as the assistant DA prosecuting. Once again, Harvey Dent, waste of a character name and character. But that's what they're doing in this universe. I never expected it to be more of a full-on comic book or accurate, so low expectations there. But I'm more looking at, you know, when he says it was just me, Arthur, which comes after he is beaten by the prison guards. And there are 3 prison guards, which I was trying to see, does this kind of mirror the 3 guys that beat him up on the subway, which in a way release the Joker. And in this, the prison guards beat him, and then they end up beating the one kind of guy that's in his cell that's kind of his friend that looks up to him. We hear him get beat up, and I am 99% sure they beat him to death, because we hear, it sounds like the guards talking softly, and this is where watching with captions really helps, because you hear all the like whisper details. They think they said something like he's gone or he's not moving or something like that, and Arthur's just listening. And it's after this that triggers Arthur to kind of reveal that he's just Arthur, that Joker really isn't him. And was it all a performance? Was it his, you know, he's mentally unstable, period. And is Arthur Joker, Joker Arthur, I think is the question. But one thing that we did not ever talk on, Janine and I did it, and I want to bring it, is the intro to the way Joker Folie à Deux starts. It starts with a cartoon. And it's interesting because it starts as if we're watching this Joker cartoon before the movie. And it makes me think of old films and old Hollywood, how they would play cartoons before a movie, and they are kind of segueing into almost like a classic movie in a way, you know, like they've labeled it as a musical, but it's not really. And you know, you can look at the prism of this film, much like Harley Quinn in The Suicide Squad, when she does like the mass killing breakout, how we're seeing things kind of from her point of view and in her head. But I liked the cartoon. I thought it was interesting. And what does the cartoon say about the film we're about to watch? Because it's called Me and My Shadow. And it's, you know, Joker, Arthur going on stage and doing his show, which is like a, you know, back to like the Murray show, which then comes up a couple of times later when it's the Harley and Joker show. You know, it shows, and cartoons are interesting because we see them watching cartoons in like their day room there in Arkham State Hospital. We see they're watching Pepe Le Pew, which you know has significance because it's all about a love-crazed person seeking out a cat who is disguised as a skunk. And in that cartoon, if you look at it, I feel like Harley is Pepe, while Arthur is the female cat who is disguised as the skunk. Because I feel like out of all of them, Harley knows more of who she is. And I feel like that's reference that we don't get, such in the fact that her transformation, I think, into Harley Quinn is supposed to mirror more of Arthur's transformation into the last act of Joker. But that was edited with the scene of her in the elevator, and it's the same scene recreated with the cut hair, and then that's the version that we meet when Arthur comes up the stairs, I really think they were planning something more with her character, and they cut it down. And I think that there was more of a subplot with her that was edited out. Like, she was going through the motions, in a sense, birthing herself to be what Arthur was, because she's mad because he really isn't Joker. And maybe she's trying to assume that I will be Joker, in my own way. So she's kind of going through the same rites of passage that he did. And that's fascinating. And I hate that was taken out. This is the most jumbled review ever because it's segments of thinking. But what does that mean for Arthur? So I feel like that's the bigger conundrum here, is what are they trying to say? And I think that's kind of what this one, where we get lost, is what are we trying to say? Do they tap into the courtroom drama as much as they could? No. Are they trying to say the impact that he had on other people? I think it's there enough when you look at Harley in this film where she goes by Lee. They only say her name one time. They say Harleen Quinzel, and most of the time they just call her Lee. And we see the people that we assume set off the car bomb that actually rescue Arthur there at the end, the one who's in full Joker makeup and style, and the other guy who's wearing the mask from the first film that all the people had. And then of course the guy that tells the joke that murders Arthur at the end. And it shows like what him doing what he did, what it spawned, and you can look at it as, like Todd Phillips always said, and I think this is kind of his gateway out in a way, is this might be the person that actually inspires the real Joker. And he said that back with the first film, and I think that's kind of what he did here, and it was kind of his way of saying, see, it's the setup that spawns the craziness of Gotham, or starts the anarchy of Gotham. And
Look up in the sky.
We want to thank you for checking out the Krypton Report podcast, and we ask you to check us out on all of our social media, on Twitter X, Facebook, Instagram, Blue Sky, Hive, Threads, YouTube. We're everywhere. And if you want to be a guest on the podcast, just send us a message and let us know.
If you are like Tyler and James and can't get enough super talk, check out these other podcasts. Digging for Kryptonite, Supergirl Radio, The Last Sons of Krypton, The Superboy Legacy Podcast, All-Star Superfans, Superman the Animated Podcast, The Aspiring Kryptonians, Always Hold On to Smallville, The Geek of Steel, and Truth, Justice, and Hope